Welcome to the EPA Alumni Association's webinar on Protecting Our Future, an introduction to the Environmental Protection Network. I'm Michael Berman, an alumnus of Region 5's Office of Regional Counsel. The Alumni Association is former employees of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency who have joined together to foster communication and joint activities among alumni. The association has more than 3,000 members over 75 years of service. Our motto is, "We are not done yet." I encourage you to check the association's website at www.epaalumni.com to join, connect with colleagues, and for resources. The Alumni Association partners with other organizations in our quest to promote both social and professional interaction among members, support EPA staff, and educate the public on the history of EPA and environmental issues. Today's program focuses on one of our partners, the Environmental Protection Network, EPN. The EPN is a nonprofit organization composed of over 650 former U.S. Environmental Protection Agency professionals across the country volunteering their time to protect the integrity of EPA, human health, and the environment. EPN's mission is to harness the knowledge and experience of its members to provide trusted, nonpartisan guidance on environmental issues. The organization works to safeguard the integrity of science-based policymaking, ensure strong enforcement of environmental laws, and promote climate action and environmental justice. In addition to introducing the work EPN is currently doing, the panelists will discuss the following: 3 priority areas: technical assistance, policy and public affairs, and civil service resiliency. During the panelist presentations, feel free to send your questions to the Q&A box. At the end of the session, there will be time for the panelists to respond to the questions. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the association's website. I'm glad to introduce our panelists and partners. This is not necessarily in the order they will speak. Anel Cabrera Maris serves as EPN's Senior Director of Technical Assistance. She brings over 20 years of experience in environmental justice, sustainability, and workforce and community development, with a focus on advancing equity and access to resources for under-resourced communities. Ms. Cabrera Maris holds an MS in Environmental Policy and Sustainability Management from the New School and earned her BA in Anthropology and Latin American and Iberian Studies from Bard College. We also have Steve Fantis, who serves as manager of EPN's Civil Service Resilience Initiative. A nonprofit veteran for more than 25 years, he joined the team in April 22. Steve coordinates relationships between EPN and other allies, manages EPN's social media accounts, and spearheads EPN's efforts to recruit a greater diversity of employees at EPA. Steve holds a BS in theater from Illinois State University and an MFA from the University of Georgia, and is a current member of Actors Equity Association. We also have Mark Haig, who is the president of EPN's Board of Directors. In January 2017, Mark Haig concluded a distinguished 37-year career with the U.S. EPA, serving both in Washington, D.C. and Kansas City. His leadership journey culminated in his role as Regional Administrator of Region 7, a position he assumed in November 2015 following 4 years as Deputy Regional Administrator. Prior to that, from September to December 2014, Mark stepped into the role of Acting Deputy Chief Financial Officer at EPA, broadening his impact across the agency's financial operations. Peter Murchie. Peter Murchie is the Senior Director of Policy and Public Affairs, leading the public affairs and policy teams and initiatives, including Save EPA and Civil Service Resilience. He has 30 years as a public sector leader focused on collaborative governance solutions for complex environmental health challenges, including at the World Health Organization and United Nations. Peter has degrees in public health and in natural resource science and policy from the University of Michigan. Jennifer Orme-Zavaleta is a senior member of both the EPN and the Alumni Association's Board of Directors. Dr. Jennifer Orme-Zavaleta served at EPA from 1981 through 2021. From 2017 through 2021, she served as the Principal Deputy Assistant Administrator in the Office of Research and Development and EPA's Science Advisor. She received her BA in Zoology from Ohio Wesleyan University, an MS in Zoology and Toxicology from Miami University, and a PhD in Wildlife Science with a minor in Public Health from Oregon State University. Now I'm going to turn the program over to Steve Fantis.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Fantis, and I am the manager of the Civil Service Resilience Initiative here at EPN. And I personally want to thank you for joining us today to hear about who we are, what we do, and how you can join our volunteer ranks. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Mark Hague. He is our EPN board chair and an EPA veteran. Mark, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Michael, for that very generous introduction. Again, I'm Mark Hague. I'm located out in the Kansas City Region 7 area and have been on the EPN board since about 2018, I believe, so for a while now. But let me talk a little bit about EPN's story and how we got started. As we all know, there was a change in administration in 2017, and early on in that administration, people began talking about making some very fundamental changes to the way EPA went about doing its business and some of the rules and regulations that were put in place. So a small group of dedicated professionals and alumni from EPA, both many who had served under Democrat and Republican administrations, and some who were even appointees under both Democrat and Republican administrations, came together to form a group called EPN, Environmental Protection Network. And starting out from a small handful of people in DC and setting up a 501c3 with a lot of volunteer help, the organization has continued to thrive. And at this point, we've built up an alumni network primarily made up of former EPA employees, but there are a few who have come from other governmental agencies that had sort of a public health or environmental background. And even some of those people in that small group early on had some experience with NOAA and places like that that helped get us set up. So from a very small, dedicated group of people, primarily in Washington, D.C., EPN kind of grew in more regional perspectives. And some of the most earliest efforts by EPN was to really take on the challenges that were coming up in early 2017 to really substantially reduce EPA's budget. So we worked really hard at helping inform policymakers and leaders around the environmental community, and even working with other non-governmental organizations to help them understand just sort of the mechanics of how EPA's budget was put together and how it funded programs. But we worked on trying to protect and defend a solid and substantial budget for EPA, and that was pretty successful. We also set up a lot of policy teams, which we'll kind of touch on here later in the conversation, to really look at new rules and rollbacks that were coming out in the first President Trump administration, and providing formal commentary and policy alternatives and help explaining to a diverse group of environmental stakeholders outside the agency wanting to understand how these rule changes or rollbacks were really affecting basic environmental and public health protections that had been put in place literally since the founding of EPA. And at that time, there were some efforts to move and change not just rules from the prior Obama administration, but rules that had gone back even further into prior administrations under Bush and Clinton, and some even going back to the first Bush presidency. So we did, substantial numbers you can see on the slide of formal comments on various activities. Had many times to, testify in various committee forums and other public comment areas. I remember going to a local gathering place, public, what am I trying to say, auditorium, and talking about the proposed rollbacks to the waters of the U.S. rule at the time. And then, as you can imagine, the number of press inquiries we were getting was just, almost daily. And by the number on the screen, it was, probably close to 3 times a day that we were getting those kind of inquiries. And then we wrote a lot of critical transition papers as the tail end of the first Trump administration was coming into place. We formed together a project called Project Reset Project, where we really went through and thought, what would be some useful information for a new administration coming in who might be looking or be interested in and trying to find some ways to rebuild the EPA back. And that turned out to be a pretty good blueprint for the Biden team when they came in to look at ways of readdressing what was going on. And then moving forward, the organization was really primarily set up to kind of defend EPA during the first President Trump administration. But we saw real quickly how important the organization was. So we pivoted to not only continuing to have regular opportunities to provide comment on policy. And frankly, as you can see from the chart, we actually did more commentary on policy and rules and regulations under the Biden administration than we had in the first Trump administration. We had opportunities to help EPA and truly work with others to kind of move the needle and get things back on track. We continued to grow as an organization. We're up to 650 or more volunteers. Continued to do a lot of work on policy and the education of policymakers and legislative officials. And that continued work, EPN has kind of a unique niche we provide, that we occupy, where we have all these former career and some appointed officials with deep, vast knowledge about EPA and its operations. And oftentimes we can provide a little background information, not only for members of Congress and the press, but other NGOs who are working on issues relating to the environment. One of the substantial things we did, and we'll talk about this again a little bit later, during the Biden administration was recognizing that there were likely to be, and there were, substantial investments in infrastructure and environmental justice work. We began building out a team of professional paid staff to help work with communities, providing professional pro bono technical assistance efforts. And so we literally were able to bring on some paid staff to cover the regions, 10 people to work on that effort, and then countless number of volunteers who work with communities, many of whom were just trying to figure out how to navigate complex government grant application processes, understanding EPA terminology and programs. So we were sort of quietly behind the scenes trying to help people understand how to be more effective in their relationships with EPA. And that work really continued. And during that 21 to 24 timeframe, EPN as an organization grew from, as I mentioned, this small tabletop organization to a handful of part-time paid staff, to really getting a full-time executive director and building out our technical assistance team and standing up our policy teams. And so we really had a fairly substantial growth. But as we all know, elections do have consequences. And in November of 2024, there was yet another transition coming by. And, it was no secret, as you see in the headline, the word trauma in quotes. There was quotes by the director, now director of OMB, and the person who led Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, Russ Vought, that they were going to traumatize the EPA workforce. And as we've all probably seen, there's just a lot going on of potential, putting people on administrative leave, closing offices, threats to consolidate organizations, proposal that just came out recently to basically eliminate the Office of Research and Development. very, very drastic, unprecedented budget cuts, even to things that before would never have been touched, like cutting out a lot of the categorical grants that go to our state and local partners. Substantial policy rollbacks, even going back as far as, entertaining ideas to get rid of the endangerment finding that came back in many, many years ago, 2008, I believe it was. Rifts to our existing civil service professional staff, attacks on them, which are unlike anything I experienced in my 37 plus years going through potential rifts, furloughs, consolidations, and reorgs. Sort of what's being contemplated now really is just totally unprecedented. The proposed budget for next fiscal year for EPA coming out of the administration would just have cuts that we can all appreciate would just be devastating to EPA and its workforce. And not that I mean, that's important, but really also part of what EPN has been trying to do is explain to folks in the public and others, it's not just the attacks on our civil service, the professional career staff, dismantling regulations, consolidating offices, substantially downsizing EPA, cutting funding that helps the states work in partnership to carry out our environmental protections. All of that has dramatic impacts on people's health and well-being in the communities and places they live, and helping explain just how that the actions being contemplated and proposed now really will undermine basic human health and environmental protections, and those do have consequences. So as you can imagine, the work we have is substantial right now and is ever growing. We're in a very dynamic, ever-changing environment, and EPN continues to occupy that unique space where the expertise of the 650 plus members and our paid staff are even more valuable now and called upon to help deal with the environment we find ourselves in. Hopefully, we will be as successful as we've been since our inception to help raise the awareness of people of what some of the impacts of all the actions being contemplated are, and see maybe Congress and others take some action to kind of defend our public health and environmental protection system that's made up of not only EPA people, but our state and local partners and tribal partners as well.
Thank you, Mark. Peter, I'm going to pass it to you so you can sort of talk about where we are right now.
Great. Well, thanks, Mark. And again, nice to be with all of you. I'm both an Alumni Association member, recently left EPA, and also now with EPN. Yeah, so as Mark said, there's a lot of strength to build on. And as he said, we've been here before, and we have been and have a real opportunity to continue to lead in documenting what's going on, pushing back, and having a strategy that's proactive as well. So it's always been embedded in our values of science, the law, transparency, and public health. And our updated numbers, we're actually over 700 volunteers now. As Mark said, we've got an incredible, strong staff, but really the key is the 700 EPN volunteers who are the strength of our effort. And then we're continuing to build on and build new critical partnerships and coalition spaces that you're going to hear about in a little bit. So yes, as mentioned up front, our focus today with you all is we wanted to provide a little bit more on what we're doing and where we're headed with our pro bono technical assistance, and Anil will be doing that next. There's a whole team of folks working on national policy, pretty active in that space already. We're launching a Save EPA campaign, which includes continuing to educate Congress, NGOs, media, and others. And we're very active in that space, and I think many of you are as well. And then Steve's going to talk about our Civil Service Resilience Initiative as well. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Steve, to get us going.
Great. Thank you, Peter. All right, first up to talk about the work that EPN does is our Senior Director for Technical Assistance, Anil.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you so much, Michael, for the introduction. Thank you all for having us in the space today. I'm super excited to lead our technical assistance team. And at its core, our technical assistance team connects EPA alumni as volunteers to frontline communities. And those frontline communities include anything from your CBOs, NGOs, to local, state, local, and tribal agencies. And through this partnership of connecting them on a one-on-one basis, we support communities in understanding how to navigate certain bureaucracies, really understand regulations, and in addition to connecting to funding. And so, as Peter had mentioned, all with the ultimate goal of making sure when it comes to regulation, when it comes to public health, that through this partnership of connecting community to experts in the field, that we're able to really ensure that there are significant environmental justice and just regular, opportunities to reinforce, what's important to community and what's important to this community. Next slide. And so we do this through our team of 9. So out of the 23 folks who are in our team, we have 9 folks who are separated regionally, and we're divided into the EPA regions. And through this regional work, it also allows us to connect and support regional activities that happen. And so everything from connecting to volunteers on a regional level, a lot of our team has been able to connect to regional chapters of the Alumni Association, to connect to community groups, to connect to law clinics, all with the support of coming in and addressing specific environmental challenges that community come to us looking for support on knowing how to navigate, how to respond, and how to change policies and recommendations. Next slide. So I just wanted to highlight a few ways in which, or one way in which we work with volunteers. And this is just an example of what an EPN volunteer comes across. And so through our network, through our regions, this is one example in New York State. We had an environmental law clinic reach out to us, and they were really interested in understanding New York City waterways and had a CSO case that they wanted to connect to an expert. And so they were seeking to have someone who understood UAA analysis under CWA, and they also potentially wanted to connect to somebody who was a CSO expert. Their goal was to submit a letter to the Department of Environmental Conservation and DEC. And so what we were able to do through our network, through our pro bono work, was take all the information in and connect them to one of our volunteers. And so our volunteer was able to meet with community about 3 times. They were able to really share with them, answer questions, share expertise, really dissect and walk them through what expert feedback on their case. And they also were able to submit and review. They were also able to review the letter that they wanted to submit to DEC. And so this is just one example of the different ways in which we leverage the volunteers. And again, this is all based on the number of time and commitment that folks have and are interested to share with us. In addition to that case study, I also wanted to highlight ways in which we ensure that we have strong connections in our regions. And so the first image is of Region 3. And so earlier this year, our team was able to connect regionally to support invisibility events and connect to volunteers. So we had a group about 20 to 25 volunteers participate in the hands-off region. And so our regional associate was able to, work with our local volunteers on creating hats, on signs. And here they have a picture, actually. They brought the attention of a Congresswoman, Pingree, which caught their, which also took a picture of them and actually mentioned them at the rally. So these visibility events are also ways in which we continue to nurture the relationships that we want to create with volunteers, not only through the pro bono work, but also understanding their expertise as we make and do matchmaking throughout our different our different regions. And then the latter is from 2019. We were able to also connect with our group of volunteers in Chicago at that time, and we had a convening with them when there was an opportunity for folks to connect in that region and get to hear what they were doing, what they were up to build connections. And so that's also a different part of our work that really supports us holistically, is in the type of relationships we want to create with volunteers, not only through the pro bono work, but what Steve will share with us moving forward on the resiliency work that we're doing with civil servants. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anel. Thanks, everybody. Up next is Peter Murchie. He is EPN's Senior Director for Policy and Public Affairs. Peter.
Great, thanks, Steve and Anel. Incredible work by the technical assistance team continuing. Yes, so the other longstanding work that Mark mentioned of APN has been national policy. And Michelle Montoya, who I think is participating today but not a speaker, leads that effort for us with some great staff support and done some incredible work, as Mark said, over the years and providing comment and testimony, just in general, bringing together really highly technical, smart folks on different topics. And you can see some of those work groups that have been set up and are ongoing: toxic science enforcement, clean water, stationary sources, mobile sources. So those continue, and they're very active in the middle of folks putting together comments for the MATS rule and the greenhouse gas emissions work, and supporting EPN volunteers also in their own testimony. And that continues to be a real priority for us and a big level of effort that we're always interested in more folks with those types of expertise joining those work groups, as we see a lot of proposals for rollback and policy. We're also looking to set up some new groups. We are realizing, and I think many of you are too, that funding and mission support areas also create impacts on the work of the agency and policy. So we're looking to put together folks with grants and financial work, human resources, to help us understand what's going on in the agency and to provide and comment and documentation of that. Legal as well. Of course, Steve and his leadership, he'll talk about of civil service resilience. We've got a work group around that as well, and also climate. And we're also looking to add a working group to help us think about public affairs. And you'll hear a little bit about that as well. If you could go back. Yeah, so this is, again, a real core of our work, and we are dependent on the incredible technical expertise and policy expertise of former EPA folks. So if you have interest in any of these, you'll see later some links and connections there, but feel free to reach out to me or Michelle Montoya with that. And I also want to say that we've, as part of this, combined with our public affairs efforts, where we're working to educate the media and get stories told and document things, we feel that we're having some success in raising awareness about issues. ORD, Jennifer came from, and she'll talk about this probably later, talks a lot with the media and others about what's going on with ORD. We think that's putting pressure on them in their own decision making. We're doing a lot of work of translating policy as well into our education of Congress and other decision makers in that space. So that's a good segue into another big area of work, which kind of combines policy and public affairs, which is Save EPA campaign. And it really is trying to be much more strategic in thinking in both the immediate time frame of what's going on and how we're reacting to that, but having a more proactive strategy in different time frames of telling the story of why EPA and EPA's mission and the people of EPA are important for society, for households, and for families, and kind of increase that coalition space to raise the awareness and the intensity level of all these important topics that we have before us, thinking in the the immediate, the 2-year time frame, 5-6 year time frame. So that will be in the space of continuing to educate Congress and other DC decision makers, that DC space, but and those who influence them, but also to regionalize it. We realize that there's a real opportunity for us to tell the story of the value of EPA and what it brings to communities, to households. And so we're looking to strategically localize and personalize, so humanize the story of what's going on to the agency and now how that's impacting folks, but also the positive things the agency brings to those communities that should be supported. So again, that's a big lift, and we're looking to work across EPN, but also with our volunteers and other coalition partners to build up a deeper bench of folks that can help us tell that story regionally and build coalitions more at the local level. So Mark Boom is helping to lead that effort for us at EPN. I think he's also listening in. If you have an interest in that, please do reach out. We really want to get your ideas as well as we launch into this space. I also want to mention Michelle Park is our senior press officer. She's been doing great work. I encourage you to go to our website and you can see lots of recent work, especially around press statements, supporting our EPN volunteers as they're out there communicating as well. And she's also developing toolkits to help others communicate about the importance of EPA on specific topics and just in general. So we'd love to work with all of you on that if you're interested. And I want to say as well, Mark hinted at it, we're in extreme amount of stress right now, and there's a lot of bad things happening, but this work, I can tell you personally, brings hope to me because I can see the impact we're having as we're doing it, and the positive feedback with key partners, and even in some changes in decision-making by this administration based off of that work. So really appreciate it. It wasn't the focus of today, but I also want to add that we have a whole area of safeguarding grants too, that isn't the focus, but really active. And Anel Shop has been working with a lot of communities, but we're also been in the space of working in coalitions to support grantees that have had terminations and trying to help them navigate through that and even fight back. And we've been having some success there as well. So thank you. I'll hand it back to you, Steve, to close us out with your effort.
Thank you, Peter. Hey again, everybody. My name is Steve Fontes. I am the manager of the Civil Service Resilience Initiative here at EPN. I just wanted to give a quick history about the work that I've done in collaboration with the Alumni Association. So as mentioned before, I've been with EPN for a little over 3 years, and I started as a communications associate in 2022. I first became acquainted with the EPA Alumni Association about a month into my original position when I was asked to join a meeting discussing a joint collaboration between the association and EPN to provide roundtables to historically Black colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, tribal colleges and universities, and other minority serving institutions in order to recruit a more diverse workforce for EPA. And at that meeting, I met the infamous Beth Craig, and we became inseparable. I even recruited Beth to join EPN because it is free to join EPN. We do not collect any dues, and there are literally no obligations except for the ones that you put on yourself. So together, our organizations have partnered on 21 university panels and 7 EPA recruitment webinars, including EPA's very first Hiring with Pride event, which was focused on the LGBTQ plus community. We worked together on an environmental justice hiring webinar, on a national hiring webinar for the Office of Air and Radiation, and then various Region 6 hiring webinars for students and the like, where we supplied EPA alumni mentors, you, to answer agency-related questions and help guide job seekers looking for a path in the environmental civil service. Over the course of these years, our relationship with the association grew, and here we are today, presenting our work in hopes that you will join our volunteer ranks. As I mentioned in the opening, I am the manager of Civil Service Resilience Initiative, and last week I had the privilege of helping Charles Lee with a service of appreciation for environmental justice staff and grantees that was hosted by the United Church of Christ last week. He asked me in an email what my definition of resilience was because he wanted to use it in his testimonial. And using my definition, Charles said, quote, "Resilience starts by supporting the federal workers and the communities they serve, including those who have left or been forced out, as well as those who remain at their posts, all working through the stress and hardship of the current moment. Not only do we need to be strong for such times as these, but we will come out stronger than ever," end quote. And that's what I'm attempting to do here at EPN now, and I would really love your help. I wanted to briefly talk about a couple of slides on a high level to give you a hint of the work that is being planned. So first, we have initiatives for collective well-being. We are looking to build support groups, host healing circles, peer support groups, and resilience training to frontline environmental staff and alumni. This includes a webinar that we are scheduling in September on trauma in the workplace with our partner, Green Jobs Network. And alumni can become involved in potential peer support groups or one-on-one mentoring and guidance, which I'll get to in just a few moments. But this is where your work can shine as volunteers. Community channels. We want to manage signal channels for alumni, including those who've most recently left the agency. These could be office or subject matter specific. We at EPN do have a volunteer signal channel with over 100 members. There, alumni discuss a myriad of topics, usually what is happening at the moment, but also planning for what's coming down the pike. And lastly, webinars. We want to host or partner in hosting a variety of webinars for civil servants. We are partnering with organizations like Partnership for Public Service on a job webinar that is happening on August 6th. And then EPN is hosting a webinar, again in partnership with Green Jobs Network at the end of August. And alumni can assist by serving as panelists on webinars such as these. This is where your expertise comes into play. The next area is to support environmental health career pathways. And I mentioned the HBCUs and MSIs in that initial project when I first got started with EPN. We want to develop mentorship and sponsorship programs for early career professionals, including those from the frontline communities. As I mentioned earlier, we rely on our alumni volunteers to sit on these panels and talk about their time at the agency. Currently, EPN is partnering with AFGE Local 3911 out of New York, and we're providing mentors to current EPA staff through the union. We did a soft launch last month, and we matched 17 mentors and mentees. And Meg McCollister, who's the former Biden RA for EPA Region 7, was one of those mentors. And I did reach out to her to ask her for a testimonial about her recent experience. And she said, quote, "Participating in the mentorship program was an incredibly rewarding experience. While providing a benefit for career public servants, while providing a benefit for the career public servant and an incredibly rewarding experience. While providing a benefit for the career public servant and helping him through what we know is a horrific time. I also felt good about actually being able to help someone. My individual contribution made a difference and allowed me to continue serving the mission we all know and love. I highly encourage others to participate and provide mentorship if able, so we all can continue to uphold the mission of protecting human health and the environment, even on the outside," end quote. And a side note, Meg did sign up for our second launch with Local 3911, which will be happening in August. The goal for this program is to make it a national level event with AFGE. So regardless of when you retired or what your experience was inside the agency, we need mentors like you. Next up is a job board. Believe it or not, EPN did not have a job board until just this year. The Alumni Association has had a job board, and we now advertise your job board on our website as well. But we want to manage an environmental job board to advertise the critical open positions within state, local, and NGO space. Not only do I receive job posts from these organizations, NGOs, and companies, but I've had many an alumni send me a position that they know about in order to advertise it on our board. So hearing about these open positions that you know about that maybe you don't want to apply for, send them to me and I can help get the word out to help our civil servants who are looking for other work. And lastly, for this slide, colleges and universities. We want to continue to build relationships with college and universities to recruit and promote. And though that work has changed slightly from the original goal of recruiting a more diverse workforce for now, our goal is now to keep young people interested in the environmental work and steer them to state, local, and NGO areas, keeping them excited and passionate about protecting the environment and human health. And like I mentioned earlier, it's your experiences that these younger folks need to hear about. On my last slide is to support localized efforts to organize and rally. And Anel touched briefly on this with regard to our technical associate team, which spans the country. We're looking to develop networks to provide in-person and virtual programming with staff and alumni and support the regionalization and localization messaging that Peter mentioned. And we need folks like you to write op-eds for your local papers, be subject matter experts during a media conference or something to that effect. But your expertise does come into play. Essential resources. We want to develop these resources and frameworks to support partners and alumni and volunteer in their efforts to organize peacefully. And Anel made her point about Region 3 and the hands-off protests that we assisted with our partners and our volunteers. And this is a biggie. We need you where you are right now. Our strength comes not only from your experience and insight, but also where you're located. We're trying to build a network of RAs and DRAs that want to be active in their regions and support them as best we can in the efforts. But you live there too. And you can come to these events and you can help organize these events. And I can assist you with that, as can our technical assistants, associates. Alumni help support in these areas, whether it's joining a town hall or passing out cookies or treats outside your local regional headquarters, just to show that our EPA colleagues that they matter and that we are supporting them and we are thinking about them. This work is not only in the immediate, but we do also have a plan for a 2 and a 4 year outlook. And I hope that you will consider joining us. I'd love to get to know you personally and learn from you and as we support our current and future environmental civil servants and colleagues. If you would like more information, please reach out to me. You can email me directly, and I believe Allison's going to put my email in the chat. Or you can fill out, if you know you're on board. Again, there are no dues. We are completely free to join. It is just a matter of how much time you have and how much time you'd like to give. You can fill out one of our volunteer inquiry forms, which will also be put in the chat. Thank you all for listening to that long spiel, and thank you for allowing me to talk about Beth. So to close this out, I want to introduce someone who needs no introduction. She started working at the agency in 1981 and from 2017 to 21 served as the Principal Deputy Assistant Administrator in ORD and EPA Science Advisor. And since then, she's kicked back and put her feet up. Just kidding, we keep her very busy here at EPN, and she serves on the board of directors for both of our organizations. Dr. Jennifer Orm-Zavaleta. Jennifer.
All right, Steve, thank you. And thanks everyone. It's great to see so many familiar names in the list. So I'm really glad people were able to join in today. So as several have noted, I have the honor of being on the boards for both organizations. And, you know, one thing that I appreciate, and I hope all of you appreciate, that, you know, not only do we have our own personal families, but we have a work family. And EPA has provided a wonderful environment for establishing a work family. And by becoming members not only of the Alumni Association, but also EPN, it's really allowed all of us to be able to reconnect. When I joined EPN, like right after I retired, I reconnected with people that I hadn't talked to in 20, 30 years. So it was really wonderful. And the wonderful thing to discover too, and I see it in both organizations, you see it with the Alumni Association's motto, and you see it and feel it with EPN, is we are all still motivated by EPA's mission, protecting human health and the environment. And though we're not working for the government, we're still trying to help the agency and sort of furthering that message and furthering that mission. There's several areas where both the Alumni Association and EPN work together. Steve talked a little bit about it, whether it's looking at mentoring, whether it's looking at helping to recruit, although the environment now is not so much focused on recruiting. But one of the other things that the Alumni Association did, and several of us have been engaged with, is especially looking at the current environment, where the first fork in the road memo went out. We immediately mobilized, partnered with a variety of organizations, the unions, Partnership for Public Service, NARFE, others, to just help inform current employees about what their employee rights were. We held a webinar, an academy webinar after hours so that people could participate on their own time, and had some really wonderful, resourceful information to explain what people's rights were, where they could go for more information. That was followed up by a session about how to brush up on their resumes and how to brush up on interview skills. And the academies are something that's really been a unique lead for the Alumni Association. As a complement to that, EPN, as you've heard, has a kind of a leading role in helping to look at actions the agency's taken and providing technical analysis, but also technical assistance to communities. The technical analysis was through many of those committees that Peter showed. I've been active with scientific integrity, science, the toxics group, the water group. And then there's technical assistance that you heard from Anel. And there you can interact directly with communities. One experience I had early on in joining was working with a very small group in the Louisiana area outside of New Orleans. And they received a $100,000 grant to look at water quality. And their eyes were much bigger than their stomachs. They wanted to go out and measure everything within a very short period of time with just a handful of people. And so there were folks like Mike Shapiro and myself and Bill Honker and David Gray from the region and a couple other folks that helped provide some guidance to help them focus on specifically the question they wanted to answer and how to make best use of the monies they received, and then how to analyze the results, pull that together, and share that information with their community. So there's opportunities like that, which were really great and very, very rewarding. The environment we're in now, I'm finding a lot of my time. In fact, I almost feel like I'm back at work. With the announcement of the administration's intent to eliminate ORD, I've spent much of my time talking to attorneys, talking to Hill staff, and talking to media. And as painful as some of that media training was when we were all working, it's paid off because there's been a lot of focus. And much of what I've been trying to do is to really help everyone understand what ORD does in the agency, why it's important, what's the value of science, and what is at risk if that goes away. Just last week, I was in Washington for several days as part of a science advocacy group, meeting with members, member staffs, and various committees to really talk through the value and importance of science. And one thing that I've seen with some of the Hill staff, first off, we all know most of these are like kids. They're fresh out of college, all puppy dog tail wag, all energy, and don't have a clue what they're doing. And they change over rapidly. And so that challenge of educating the Hill is really important because we have to keep their conveying the message, helping them to understand, providing them with information And I do feel like a lot of those efforts are really, starting to pay off. That challenge of what's happening with ORD, that's part of a Save the EPA effort. And so, yeah, we have these hats, and I see that somebody put in the chat a question about how to get one. And so send a note to Steve, and Steve can follow up too on how to get one. But the one thing I want to leave you with, and then we can open it up for questions. Under many administrations, each administrator always seems to be challenged with the question of looking at the retirement bubble and saying, oh, gee, I've got 30+% of the workforce that's eligible to retire. They could walk out the door. We would lose so much historical knowledge. Well, here we are now with this administration chasing people out the door. And with that is the very real risk of losing a lot of expertise in the agency, losing a lot of historical knowledge. Well, guess what? That's where EPN and the Alumni Association both come into play, because we have a treasure trove of expertise in all of you. You all come from a regional perspective, a headquarters perspective, all different disciplines, all different community experiences, and experiences working with other agencies, with industry groups, et cetera. And that is all so critically valuable. So I just want to reiterate the importance that it's easy to be members of both organizations. Both organizations have particular areas of focus, both work together in various areas. And with EPN, we really would look to tap into your expertise, because there's a lot happening. It changes every single day. And what you know, what your experience is just so incredibly valuable. So thank you, Steve, Michael, others. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think now we're going to open it up for questions and answers. And Lori, I'm going to turn it to you to guide us through that process.
Thank you, Steve. My name's Lori Boughton. I'm with the Alumni Association, and I work on the Academy Committee as well as other things. We had a number of questions that were answered right away in the chat, but I'll just, in case people aren't monitoring the chat, I would just want to tell you that the volunteer inquiry form that you can fill out to become part of EPN is in the chat box if you want, or the Q&A box, excuse me, if you want to take a look at that. We had a question that was answered, but I'll repeat it. I didn't see any policy work groups associated with waste cleanups and emergency management. Is it that there aren't any issues coming up in that area, or just no volunteers? And Peter, you responded saying that you do have a RCRA and Superfund work group. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Just apologies that wasn't on the slide, but yes, it is an area of focus. Yeah.
Okay, it's a lot of information to get through. We obviously had the question about the hats. People like swag.
Yeah, on that one, yes, we would love everybody to have a hat. We have been doing that as part of a fundraising campaign for EPN. So if you want to, if you donate $500 or more, you can get a hat. And we can put that link for donate in there as well. But thanks for that. We love the hats.
Excellent. Here's another one. When I was at EPA, I was involved with systems development, web communications, and GIS. Is EPN doing any work related to these issues with EPA content or systems being deleted, altered, etc.? A response was given that they should check out some of the efforts of the Environmental Data and Governance Initiative and their website, but I thought I would open it up to see if anybody wanted to respond.
Mark, did you raise your hand for that?
Yeah, I just partly to get to this question too, Peter, and it's really to underscore the answer that Michelle and you gave in the chat. If anyone is really interested in trying to find ways they can help EPN and its efforts and its mission, really encourage people to go to the link and fill out a interest form, areas you're have had experience in or have interest in, and things you'd like to do. I'll tell you from a personal perspective, every now and again when we send that out to our members to ask them to update it, I think of some other area I could probably offer some assistance and refill it out. So think of it as a live document that you can fill out, but that's the best way to get involved. Because even though you may not see an issue team or a topic that's popping up right now, as we all know, there's a wealth of information requests that we get, and knowing what areas of expertise people have and interest in helping EPN, we go to those forums to really look people up and get them engaged. So topics aren't short, and I'm sure we haven't seen all of them yet. So again, just a real strong pitch to fill out that interest form if you're at all interested in helping EPN in its mission.
Great.
Thanks, Mark.
And on the EDGI, yeah, EDGI's great, and we are working in partnership with them. They're doing that government-wide, a lot of good work there and other things. But in general, it's not quite the question. I will say we're looking at potentially, if folks are interested in the EPN volunteer space, folks that could think about things like that. AI as well seems to be a priority out there. And if folks have that kind of expertise or interest, we're looking at potentially creating a group to help us think that through as well. So I'm not sure if that's exactly that, but it prompted my thoughts on that too.
Excellent. Here's a question for maybe Jennifer. Why is the Alumni Association different than EPN, or maybe how?
Sure, I can start off and then others can chime in too. I tried to give a few examples of where they differ, but the Alumni Association started around 2008, thanks to Chuck Elkins, who's the executive director. And again, it was really intended more socially, with that idea of the work family and helping to reconnect people and to be able to provide them up-to-date information on what might be happening with the agency, and focusing on that initial mentoring, coaching kind of relationship. As Mark Haig noted, EPN evolved in 2017 with really a different focus to take a more active stance on the budget, on technical aspects of what was happening with the agency under Trump 1. I do want to say both organizations are nonpartisan. And so that is something that we have been very clear about. We're providing factual information, whether it's to Congress, to the public, to media, and other groups. Both organizations are nonpartisan, and we do have members that have crosswalked administrations. But with EPN, they were a more vocal challenge or pushback to put factual information out there in response to different agency actions. And I think that that's become even more important now because we are in an environment of so much misinformation. So trying to put out there what's right, what's factual, and to make sure that the American public knows, because there's a lot going on and people don't know what resources to believe, what resources to look at, and that remains a challenge.
Yeah.
But Mark, I don't know if you want to add on or
I was
anything.
just going to add, that's very good, Jennifer, and I agree with all that, particularly emphasizing the nonpartisan aspects. The other thing too is, for all of us, we came to EPA and environmental work, or at the risk of generalizing, with a strong ethos for public service and support, and a commitment to a strong set of environmental protections, not only for the work we did decades ago in some cases, but for future generations. And one of the exciting things I found about being involved in EPN, the Alumni Association was great because I was able to stay in contact with people and kind of do some continuing ed through the academies. But when I got involved with EPN, I felt like I was still able to kind of carry out that public service, public health, environmental protection work and kind of continue that on long past my career at EPA. So it's been a great place to stay engaged and in some small way feel like I'm part of something bigger that's trying to do something good for our health and well-being, even though my time at EPA ended.
Excellent. Thank you. I have a question about, can you talk a little bit about what is planned around climate and what are the options to support the importance of this cross-cutting work? Administration is really cutting all climate work inside the agency. Is that Peter?
Yeah, so
Okay.
that is a big, well, it's not me personally. Michelle Montoya doesn't have access. She would be jumping in all over the place.
Okay.
But yeah, so we are looking to get more expertise in that area, but we're also very active in that space too. Um, but yes, if you're interested and have a background expertise in climate policy, climate science, certainly that's a key area of work that's really important. Certainly it's embedded in the work groups already. So, a lot of the comment that are being done on what they're doing right now in rural rollbacks is in that space. So, hope that's
Well,
helpful. Oh, there's Michelle Montoya. Michelle, do you want to add there?
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't know that I could be added like this. This is magic. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Montoya. I am EPN's policy director. Yeah, so we are, more specifically, I don't know, we're currently working on like the proposals that are out right now, the engagement finding for greenhouse gas emit electric generating units. We're working on that, and of course, there's an imminent announcement coming that they want to roll back the original engagement finding. So working on that, and that is sort of underlying all climate. But we're also looking to set up a more general climate work group since, the agency is not doing that work. They're rolling that back, and we want to make sure that we have the stage set for when there is a more amenable situation to continue that work. We don't want that work to end. And we know there's a lot of expertise, unfortunately, coming out of the agency, that will be available. So if that's something you've done before, or have done at the agency or another capacity, you should reach out. We really welcome your expertise. Absolutely. Sorry, there's another question for me.
Well, and just to that question too, I would chime in, a lot of the work we did with communities, there was a lot of infrastructure money and funding available to communities to deal with things like climate resiliency and even energy conservation and green energy efforts. And some of that work will continue through the existing grants or EPA funding that was provided and work with those communities on some of their resiliency and climate adaptation efforts.
I think this next question is for either Peter or Michelle. Someone's questioning about what a NEPA work group and infrastructure. And I guess there was at one point in time a work group on that. Does that still exist? Is it working? Is it up?
Yeah, I'm assuming that question is coming from Cheryl. Is that Cheryl? Sorry, I can't see the chat. It's not an active group. There is not any particular policy that's going on right now that we can be responding to. I know that there's a lot of harm happening to NEPA, but I don't know that any of that is unfortunately in the EPA space. So that's, some of these work groups are, a lot of the groups that have a lot of activity right now are related to actually sort of not just on policy, but we've set up ones that are more about actually preserving EPA as an organization. Like we have ones on surface resiliency, we have ones that are focusing on scientific integrity. And so that's those are the things that are really active and continually ongoing right now. And NEPA has been quiet in the EPA space. There are no proposals that I'm aware of. I know that there are a lot of executive orders coming out that impact NEPA, but there's nothing that we could do about that specifically, unfortunately, in this moment.
Thank you, Michelle. I have one last question, and I think this is for you, Anel. It says, I'm an alumni from Region 10. Can you send the email address for the EPN Region 8 and 10 coordinator? And maybe we can send something out to, or we can put something on our website, or it's on your website, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so we have our list, but I can definitely go ahead. I was just searching for it. And as just reiterating what's been shared for everyone, you can fill out, it's a very short survey, very quick information to be a part of our volunteer network. And so, yes, I will make sure that if regionally folks want to connect to specific folks, that you can reach out to us as well. I can put in my email as well in the chat.
Thank you so much. So as I get ready to close out this wonderful session, I would ask our speakers, do you have any other last minute comments that you'd like to make to our audience?
Just real appreciation for the Alumni Association, for our volunteers, and our coordination and collaboration with each other. And it's needed now more than ever. So thanks, Lori, and all for helping us have this. And Steve, great job facilitating.
And I would just like to say that reiterate that it doesn't matter how long you've been out of the agency, that your experience and your lived experience and your knowledge, that's the information that we need and we can use. So we would love to have you join us.
And Lori, just to you and Chuck and other members of all the members of the Alumni Association, really want to thank you for putting this on and helping us share information, and appreciate our efforts to kind of coordinate and inform each other's group of what we're doing. So we look forward to that continued positive working relationship moving forward. You know, the work that EPN has done and is doing is critically important. And on behalf of the entire board, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Michelle Roos and our professional team and the staff who, you know, again, we've got about 24 or more employees full-time in the organization, full and part-time, who are doing incredible work. So we've got a strong infrastructure of people behind our effort who do fantastic work and have a wonderful way of finding opportunities for those volunteers who want to give a little bit of time and talent and expertise to our efforts to get them engaged, whether it be mentoring that Stephen mentioned about, which I know a lot of us have found incredibly rewarding, or help shape policy and directions and educate the public and policymakers on what effective environmental protection looks like. So again, a big shout out to the paid staff that really make this organization run well.
Fantastic. Well, on behalf of the alumni,
I'm sorry,
I'm
Larry. I
sorry.
just want to chime in just to hand it back to return that to Mark and to all the other volunteers who are also on our board. Working with our EPN volunteers is like the best part about the job that we have as a member of the staff who never worked in EPA. But I wish that I had, just from seeing all the interacting with all the people that I have. So I was working in policy now this is my third or fourth year. And I've just you're just such consummate professionals, that you are really, really smart, intelligent people who know what you're talking about. Is just really amazing to be able to work with these kind of people. As you know, that's the easiest part of my job. I just really appreciate you all. And if you're interested in working in policy and you have experience, please just drop us a line. We'd be happy to have you and work you in. And you guys will, maybe it's also a nice way. I find like I have some favorite work. I don't have favorite work groups, but there are some people who they work together at EPA and they still have that camaraderie. And I'm speaking specifically of the pesticides work group. So if you guys worked in pesticides, maybe you know what this is about. But it feels good for them too, and it's very rewarding. And I really appreciate all the institutional knowledge is really what it is, and the pragmatism that comes from the EPA people, EPA alum that come back and work with EPN. So, and I'll stop. Thank you.
No, thank you. So on behalf of the Alumni Association, I want to thank our EPN colleagues and partners, Peter Murchie, Mark Haig, Anel Cabrera, Mara, Steve Fantis, and Jennifer Orma. I'm going to get your name wrong.
Zoletta, it's a mouthful.
Zoletta, I know. Thank you so much for taking the time and spending it with us and our members and giving us all this great information on how we can further our fight to keep environmental protection still within the rubric of what the federal government does. Appreciate that very much. Michael Berman, thank you so much for opening up the session for us. Really appreciate that. We will be posting a video of today with the slide deck. It's more an audio, and I think Chuck will put up a podcast as well. So if you want to listen again, please do. If you want to share it with your colleagues, we welcome that as well. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you all, and I hope you'll join us for our next webinar.